Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music, and today I want to take a look at a contact sample library, Kayvon Violin Intimate. It's a performance-based sample library that allows kind of continual morphing of gestural and dynamic elements. If that sounds a little confusing, I think as soon as you see me playing around with it, you'll get just what I mean. So if you're a fan of Johnny Greenwood's scores or Penderecki, of those extra spicy violin sounds that just sound like they're kind of from another world sometimes, this might be the library for you. Well, I wouldn't have known about this library if they hadn't popped it up on the Facebook contact sample library group. And actually, as soon as I saw Inletaudios post about it, I realized they had done another one of my sort of favorite textural libraries from this past year, the clarinet library, that is really quite remarkable. Well, they've obviously got they've got a spin on what they're doing, and the spin is good. I'll show you how it works. Well, first of all, let's just shout out to this artist here. Kayvon is a freelance violinist based in Los Angeles, and he's, a film score violin player, basically. And this library has been recorded in basically a scoring stage with lots of different articulations. Here's the front end of the library. Each corner of this quadrant has a different sound. I'm gonna, let's see, just kind of play a loud version of this sound. Just took the expression slider all the way up. Here's the collegno with the bow. And as I slide this over to this corner, I'll get a tremolo version of the same thing. And I can morph between them, right? Something really exciting about that. Now, flautando is a kind of a fast, light motion on the bow, and it's almost like a normal sound. This beautiful XY pad allows me to sort of modulate between the two. And finally, over here, harmonic chords. There's only going to be harmonic chords on a few keys, but okay, what does that mean for us as performers? Well, just something as simple as grabbing a simple, like, kind of interval like so. So there I had my trackball moving the dot to sort of change the mixture of the different sounds, but I could easily assign sliders to those as well. We've got a slider assigned to expression here, but if I control click here, I can learn MIDI CC automation, and I've actually done that already. So I've got MIDI CC automation for the respective vertical and horizontal axes, and by playing around with both of them, as well as the volume slider, I've got, 3-slider control over the sound. Well, that's what's exciting about this for me, because it means I can automate it and get exactly the gestures that I sort of need for the moment this is for scoring to picture, right? There's just no question about this. I can get just the kind of moment, the outburst that I need. And with these amazing sounds, I got lots to choose from. In fact, take a look. Each of these corners has a pull-down menu that allows me to choose what sound I'm going to be using, what sort of articulation is going to go into that corner. And we've got major and minor chords as well as harmonic chords. The flautando, as I said, is kind of just a sort of a normal, like almost sounds like a regular violin tone, but kind of lighter and sort of more transparent. Col legno, with the bow, and tremolo and sul ponticello are both special techniques that use bows or wood or whatever, depending on where you are. And then we have sordino, which is with mutes, and then various kinds of attacks and improvs. We have trills and bends. All these things come into play, and they all appear in this like set of snapshots that we have up above, including basic combinations, creative combinations, which you can imagine kind of what that would be like. This one I made for myself. Some drama textures, horror textures, lots of flexibility, and this is well demonstrated if you go to the website and take a look at their sort of just introduction to the instrument. Now, each of these corners has its own kind of edit page, and you've got EQ as well as some things like visual sound field spreading and kind of rotation, some filters, and just general master volume and pan. And the pan can be really useful. I'm going through this quickly because it's very interesting, this instrument. I'm certainly enjoying it. Let's go back home again and take a look at the just general main page, where we've got mic setups in this, as I said, big scoring room that include close, high trees room and very wide sounds. Now, we could just go ahead and turn off everything except the wide, say, and get a very different sound picture. Much more subtle. Okay, just as a comparison, just the close. Nice, right? Really hear the difference. Obviously good mics. There's some effects. We've got reverb and some delay, as well as overall filter and some variations. There's conveniently a pitch. I found you can probably go down about a fifth or so and still have it sound pretty decent. Well, I thought it might be interesting to hear a few presets. So here's a preset, and I modified almost all of these to suit myself, including adding the sliders. Here's a preset called Shaking. You can hear I've changed the overall position of the sound in the sound field, so I'm getting a really strong stereo image. It's interesting. It sounds very dynamic. Now, what does this compare mostly to? Well, I love the Westwood instruments, and let's just quickly look at it. Solo Instruments Untamed, and this is what their interface looks like. And you can see, for instance, in this instrument, I've got two versions of it in a multi, and I've chosen improv B and vibrato, and then down here, I'm playing with a couple of other sounds as well, improv C and surges. And this overall effect is, again, very dynamic, but it hasn't got that same sort of capacity to sort of shift and sort of morph from one to the other that we're sort of seeing here. I love this implementation, basically. It's a great use of contact. Very impressed by the programming on this. And it's working really effectively for us. Let's look at another patch. So here's drone shot, and I've modified this one a little bit too. In fact, I think if we look, yeah. So here's an example of one that's been tuned down a fifth, set to -7, right? So here we are. There's some trills. Just one note at a time. Called leño is with the wood of the bow instead of with the horsehair, and so you get this kind of like airy, rough texture. Neat, right? I tell you, this guy Kayvon, he's probably a first call cat. All right, distant sirens. Well, you can imagine what this is going to be like. I don't know. Maybe you can. Scale clusters. Here we are in Johnny Greenwood territory. Let's just set ourselves up right over here. And you can hear quite a bit of reverb, which is helping us, I think. And does it respond to pitch bend? It does. Cool. Well, I wondered what would it be like to build my own patch, to sort of go through and choose exactly what I wanted on each of these corners, and then play around with pitch, and then look at each of them individually and play around with panning a bit and volume, perhaps adding something like spread and saturation to each of the corners. And so this is a kind of an imagined sound for me, a nighttime battlefield sound. Beautiful, right? Well, I'm really grateful to Inletaudio for sending this to me to take a look at. And I suspect that I'm going to find a way to get it into my template and maybe into even the show that I'm working on right now. These kinds of textures aren't melodic. They're not even really necessarily harmonic. I wouldn't think of them as something that I'd grab to use as a backing track for a melody. The rhythmic components are all slightly irregular. You're sort of stuck with what's there. At the same time, it's a kind of a texture that would be very difficult to get without an actual player in the room with me. And there's just a general kind of energy in these performances that I think is going to be very useful. And beautifully recorded, I think will meld well with other things. I've sort of just cracked the surface of this. This is really kind of a first look, I guess. And my first impression is just, very favorable. Well, check out the website for pricing and availability right now. And don't overlook the clarinet library as well. Very interesting stuff. I hope this has been useful. Like it, subscribe. If you ding the bell, you'll know when I do my new videos. But just between you and me, I'm kind of like right now planning videos on the weekend, maybe on Wednesday, and then my shorts feed where I really focus on like fun piano stuff to do on keyboard, fun hand gestures, melodies, patterns, things that are interesting to do that are kind of beautiful and not easy necessarily, but clear, if you know what I mean. Well, I'll see you next time.